And kind of following on from devices, one of the things to kind of look at is kind of mobile versus tablet activity. People ask me sometimes, is the tablet a mobile device or is it a PC? What is it? Actually, I've never been asked that by any single consumer or friend ever. They don't care. They're just using it. I would say to you, if you're going to put it somewhere, put it within your mobile strategy, simply because behaviour is changing as a result of it, and with mobile, you're looking at how that change is impacting your business and what you should be doing. But fundamentally, consumers don't really define these things in the same way. They just do things differently. And you see the tablet tends to drive bigger behaviour and actually some new behaviours kind of compared to the mobile phone. Not a great deal of surprise. It's a different size, there's some different context of usage in terms of that. But one of the things that kind of stands out that's relevant for today is people are much more likely to be shopping on their tablet device than they are on their mobile device, which is kind of 67%, which is still actually very big, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. Part of this is simply down to size, and actually if we look at where the tablet tends to be used, it's kind of used much more at home than it is out and about. A lot of that is driven by two things. Size, I've already mentioned. The second thing is connectivity. Many tablets tend to be Wi-Fi only, so therefore you tend to use it where you've kind of got that Wi-Fi opportunity. So, kind of in a sense, devices, we've got operating system, we've got tablets, we've got different sizes, we've got things coming halfway between a tablet and a phone. Understand what your consumers are doing for your business is kind of one of the takeouts for there. Now, and kind of heard it, mobile's always there, always on, and kind of social is a really important part of that. So, actually fundamentally mobile is still about communication. Social networks are used in a big way, it's kind of growing 65% year on year. Actually Facebook use is growing, and even growing more mobile than it is on PC, where it even shrank in this same time period. So if we look a little bit more actually into usage, we see here from actually people spend more time on Facebook on their mobile than they spend on their PC. Partly driven by things like work network might not allow you, partly driven by just it being easier and nicer to do. Another thing that's kind of interesting about Facebook, again, kind of stepping back out of the UK, that in some countries, 90% of their use comes from mobile. In some countries, 30% of their new registrations come from mobile. In some countries, they constitute 25% of the internet traffic on mobile. There is some fundamentally big and different behaviour kind of coming as a result of kind of this connectivity. The next bit I'm just going to talk about in social is social gaming. Who's heard of Draw Something? Who here's got Draw Something? Yeah, kind of not bad. So 50 million users in 50 days, something like 6 billion drawings exchanged, something like 24 million unique users a day. One of the things that's really it's a bit like Pictionary that you play with a friend. You don't need to be next to each other for those of you who haven't got it. And if you haven't got it, you're a laggard. Get it. Have a play. But one of the things that was really interesting for me, 1999 I'm doing mobile. One of the things that was interesting for me out of this is where I heard about this. Who drove me to use this? It was my 7-year-old son. My 7-year-old son knew about this before I did. And actually, kind of as you look at how children use these things and how children are interacting, in the future, 5-10 years, the generational, we're going to have an even bigger step change as they've grown up with chucking a load of things in the bin, camera, music player, everything else, and they're using their single phone to do these kind of things. So my 7-year-old is teaching me mobile. It's kind of just moving on from kind of social to look at advertising. I mean, John's already kind of put some stats up. Just a reminder of those, 203 million, up 157%. And actually at the graph there, kind of they compared at the IAB online ad spend versus mobile ad spend. Maybe we're heading to the same astronomical growth that's kind of taken online to kind of over a 4 billion industry. In fact, actually, it's kind of ahead of it if we kind of look at kind of 10 years difference between those. One of the more interesting things I kind of saw for about mobile ad spend is something that Mediacom said, Stefan Bardega there. They spend 220 million on digital. Only 2% of that goes on mobile-specific buys. But actually, they've discovered that 7% of impressions are served on mobile devices. Basically, consumers are surfing digital websites on their mobile devices, and they're seeing an advert on that. So actually, they're kind of underspending in a sense. And more importantly, they're even finding that 14% of the clicks are coming from mobile. So mobile is over-indexing for people engaging with the advertising that they're putting there. Take out from this, they're now going to shift, I think he said something like to 10% of their spend within a couple of months of now, so the middle of the year will be kind of shifted to mobile. that's coming like a 5-fold increase in just 3 months in terms of their plan from looking at the insight into the things that they have. Again, some evidence that consumer behaviour is ahead of brands. The IB also did a good kind of brand advertising case study with John Lewis. So in here, over 1,000 panellists clicked on an SMS link sent to them, visited the site, saw an ad, and half a day or half an hour later completed a survey. And then, a quarter of that as a control group. And the next day, about half of them were asked to visit the John Lewis website and again were surveyed. Just some context. The results, an 8-fold increase in unprompted awareness of John Lewis, which is a fairly significant impact. And actually of the exposed people, they're much more likely, or 25% are more likely to remember a rich media ad rather than a kind of static banner. And actually the 5% who were sent to the site actually claimed to have purchased something as a result. So actually kind of showing there's a mobile optimized site, putting it kind of there, actually shows against the control group, you can get some fairly significant numbers. And this probably explains why the mobile advertising spend is going up so fast and why we're expecting to kind of go up further in the future, which is kind of a nice step into retail. Google said earlier this year that kind of there's been 132% increases in retail searches on mobile devices. People are more than twice than likely to be looking for stuff on retail on their mobile device. If we kind of look at some ComScore stats for the retail classification, something just under 6 million uniques are looking at retail websites each month. And that's something like a 95% increase year on year. So actually, if we kind of look at actually how people are surfing and looking at retail on mobile devices, we're seeing it's kind of pretty much doubled over the course of the last year. But actually kind of what's also happening is how it's used in store. So this is 43% of smartphone users are saying, I use my phone in store to do things, to make a decision. And the graph underneath here kind of shows some of those. So, are they taking a picture of the product is actually number one. Whether that's address, whether that's just to remember it, whatever else it is to get an opinion. Kind of talking to someone else, price, comparison, various different things that are kind of driving that in-store behaviour. And I'll come back to some takeouts in a minute. But first, another stat from kind of our mobile planet. So actually 21% of smartphone users say they have changed their mind about a purchase in store as a result of using their smartphone in store. That's a fairly significant stat if you're a retailer. And it's a fairly significant stat if you're someone trying to sell online without a physical retail presence. It's an opportunity or a threat or both, but it's something you need to do something about. You cannot just ignore this, because consumers, this is a year old, consumers are already doing these things.